It's June 14th, 1997, and this is the 122nd Commencement from the University of Washington in Seattle. From UWTV, welcome to another live broadcast of our graduation ceremonies from Heck Edmondson Pavilion. I'm Jim Stutzman.
And I'm Pam Stewart. The processional for the 97 ceremonies will soon be underway. I hear the music right now. University graduates-to-be will start entering the pavilion. Lots of smiling faces here today, particularly among the family and friends. A sense of relief, perhaps. This is going to be a day for a lot of well-deserved celebration.
We are about to begin the pomp and circumstance of graduation. Once out, most of the students will likely forget the pomp and remember the circumstances of the years they've spent here. For the moment, it will soon be balloons, messages on the mortar boards, and as you point out, lots of smiles, Ben. Students very happy to be receiving their degrees and with any kind of luck heading for greener pastures.
But most, I'm sure, will take away a lot of memories from this place. Slipping along, literally for most, on a rainy day in Red Square, the cherry blossoms in the spring on the quad, and of course the incomparable view of Mount Rainier across Drumheller Fountain, known in any case here as Frosh Pond.
Got to be the university's famous vista. It is not the logo, but it is the one site that anybody who's spent much time around here always remembers. Just for the record, it should be noted that the view framing Mount Rainier across a sweeping lawn was designed by the Olmsted brothers for the 1909 Alaska-Yukon Pacific Exposition. It's probably the signature site of the university, and it's in full bloom today.
And if you cruise the web, and I know that many of you are doing that these days, plan to pay us a visit. The university's homepage is at www.washington.edu. There you'll see an almost live view of Red Square, the fountain, and weather permitting, of course, Mount Rainier. The website address again, www.washington.edu. And you'll get a bird's eye view of also what's going on here at the university. Events, programs, and just general information about us.
You're watching the gold ceremony, the afternoon graduation event. This is the ceremony honoring the 2,300 or so baccalaureate and graduate candidates in attendance today who will be receiving degrees from the science departments of the College of Arts and Sciences and from all the other schools and colleges of the university.
All told, almost 10,000 students will receive degrees this year. That's a new record. And so is the number of students taking part in these exercises. You know, there's always a good crowd for this event, but today's takes the cake for attendance. When you add up the graduates, their friends and families, it's well over 20,000 for the day.
A packed house. The music for today's activities features the university's wind ensemble, directed by Timothy Saltzman. We're listening to the processional medley. It will continue as today's record number of graduates enter the pavilion.
And if you've joined us to see a particular graduate and would like a videotape of his or her graduation, feel free to record this telecast. If you don't have the wherewithal to do that, know that there will be recordings available again this year. You'll find them at the university bookstore, and the price is cheaper than last year, $24.95. Who says there are no bargains anymore? So if you want more information on those tapes, you can call 1-800-335-READ at the University Bookstore.
There's always wide public interest in these graduation ceremonies. After all, students from all over the state are being honored here today. Seating space is always at a premium for these events. That is why UWTV Channel 27 brings you this coverage.
And we'll be rerunning this coverage over the next few weeks. If you live in the Seattle area, you'll find these broadcasts on Channel 27. In Tacoma and Pierce County, you'll find us on either Channel 12 or 28. In Wenatchee, it's Channel 12, and in Spokane, Channel 16. You can check your local listings, and be sure to do that to get the exact times of those reruns.
While we're at it, a little self-promotion seems to be in order for UWTV. You'll find some unusual fare when you spend time with us. We are a non-profit, non-commercial, educational programming service. What you see and hear here may surprise you. There are lectures and events not only from this campus, but from other premier schools around the nation. Stuff from Harvard, MIT, Duke, Berkeley, Stanford, Yale, and the like. It is heady stuff.
That's right. It's television that introduces viewers to some of the top folks in the fields of science, medicine, language, arts, engineering, computing. This is not ship sinks, queen dies, the weather in 1 minute television. It's thoughtful TV. And we were rewarded recently with an overall Excellence in Programming Award in this year's Best of the Northwest Festival. That festival judges programming from Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, Washington, British Columbia, and Alberta. And we're newcomers to all this. UWTV was only established in 1994.
Last year, as a matter of fact, the telecast of these commencement exercises earned 2 awards for excellence in live programming, one regional, the other national. Maybe we should quit now while we're still ahead.
No chance, Jim.
Just a thought.
No chance. Student participation in graduation is increasing, not only here at the UW, but all over the nation. But our coverage on TV next year may just be a departure from what we've done in the past. There's some talk about moving the entire graduation ceremony outdoors and holding a single event. It could be an absolutely beautiful extravaganza, given the natural beauty of this area. Then again, it could be a total disaster. As we all know, in this neck of the woods, June weather is, shall we say, unpredictable.
I believe the word is sometimes problematic. It didn't bother anybody at the first of these events. The class size then was memorable. 1. That's it. A single University of Washington graduate in 1876. The student was Clara McCarty, a name that still rings a familiar bell around here. McCarty Hall is one of the on-campus residence halls. Clara McCarty, incidentally, went on to become the first female superintendent of schools in Pierce County.
And speaking of Pierce County and Tacoma are now home to one of the campuses of the UW. UW-Tacoma is now in its 7th year and boasts about 1,000 alumni, and it is soon to move into its new and permanent home in the heart of downtown Tacoma. It's really a beautiful site. Most of the classrooms and offices are going to be housed in restored turn-of-the-century warehouses. The reading room, for example, in the new library is the former Snoqualmie Falls Power Company transformer house that originally powered the streetcars in Tacoma.
It is great to know that things like that are preserved so well. This September, the whole shebang becomes official. If you're a Tacoman or a Tacoma woman or a Tacoma wannabe, for that matter, you are welcome to join us for the ribbon-cutting ceremonies. Just a few days ago, UW-Tacoma graduated just over 380 students. If you'd like information about our campus there, you can call toll-free 1-800-736-7750. Those opening ceremonies are going to be held September 27th, 12:30 that afternoon. It will be the first time that a new campus, is opened at the University of Washington since 1861.
How about that? And this is also the 7th year of operation for the University of Washington Bothell. If you drive the I-405 corridor with any regularity, you'll have seen the sign for that campus. Tomorrow in this very spot, 343 UWB graduates will be picking up their sheepskins. Like Tacoma, Bothell's alumni total is now in the neighborhood of about 1,000.
UWB, located in the Canyon Park Business Center, it will be moving to its permanent home just a short way from Canyon Park in the year 2000. It's going to share that location with the new Cascadia Community College.
And for your information, the Bothell curriculum includes upper division undergraduate programs in nursing, liberal studies, business administration, and computing and software systems. There's also a Master's of Education and a certification program for K-12 teachers. So please call UWB, University of Washington Bothell, toll-free at 1-800-736-6650.
You're watching the 1997 commencement exercises from the University of Washington on UWTV, Channel 27 in Seattle.
And the next group of future UW alumni are filtering in. These students, like those before them, are obviously in great spirits. As this period of long evenings in the libraries draws to a close, we can only hope that they take these spirits with them as they take on their next challenge in life.
It's a good time to be looking for the challenge, too, a job in particular. Unemployment rates are at their lowest in years, and with a UW diploma as a ticket, it would seem that the prospects for these students couldn't look better. Time permitting, we will expand on that thought later in this broadcast.
And now let's get to our table of contents for today. In a few minutes, University of Washington Marshall, philosopher, and raconteur Ron Moore will officially open Commencement 1997. President McCormick will introduce today's special guests and award winners, and that will be followed by comments from the student body president, John Linder.
And then you will hear from today's commencement speaker, Meg Greenfield, Pulitzer Prize-winning editorial writer for the Washington Post, a native Seattleite and an alumna of the Bush School.
During the program, 4 faculty members will be singled out as winners of this year's Distinguished Teaching Awards. They are, in alphabetical order, Bob Crutchfield, Professor of Sociology, Doug Powell, Professor of Medicine, David Salison, Professor of Computer Science, and Bob Stacy, Professor of History.
Several weeks ago, all of us had a chance to discuss teachers and teaching. All 4 spoke about their former teachers and how their passion for this profession may have begun as a result of these people. Most of our discussion focused on the undergraduate experience in big universities. This is a portion of our discussion. There is a common belief, I think, that undergraduates get short shrift, and well, you didn't buy into that.
Oh, I think I pronounced it flatly false.
Good.
And I think it is flatly false. I taught at an Ivy League school before I came here. My classes here, until very recent years, were smaller than the ones I taught at that Ivy League school. Students here spend more hours in the classroom with me and just as many hours outside as they did at that Ivy League school. And in terms of what I see around me, I see and hear far more discussion about pedagogy amongst my colleagues, how to teach, what's working, what isn't, than ever went on.
I think that's very important. I mean, for me, my experience here at the University of Washington has been enriched by coming into a department that when I came in, Fred Campbell, who's now the Vice Provost for Undergraduate Teaching, was the chair. And right from the beginning, when I came as a new assistant professor, there was support for teaching, doing it well. There was discussions about how to do that. And so coming into an environment which richly sort of talked about work with and teaching was an important part of, I think it's something that sets this university apart. I agree that I don't think our undergraduates get shortchanged. Could we do a better job? We always will be able to do a better job. But I think that in large measure, they get a good deal here.
Doug Powell, can this sort of thing work in a medical school, in a medical setting?
Absolutely. The department I'm in, the Department of Medicine, led by Paul Ramsey, has, in the last 8 years, totally reinvented the way teaching is done, and by having clinician educators, that is, people that are hired to take care of patients and teach, without research being the primary focus for them, have allowed people to have more time to do teaching and to spend one-to-one time with the students and really make that their life's passion.
What are the rewards that you get, all of you, from the work that you do, from teaching? David, you want to?
Well, I guess one of the rewards is to see students who, when they first come in, actually don't know, if they're undergraduates, may not know anything about the field I work in, computer graphics, but learn not only all about the field, but how to do some new work at the forefront of the field, and then to be able to present it and defend it in front of a huge conference of thousands of people. It's incredibly rewarding. I guess it's the first that I felt really like a parent, I guess, was having students doing that kind of thing.
It's a nice comparison. Bob?
I teach medieval history. Very few people come into the university thinking that they actually need to know about medieval history. And so the challenge is to persuade them by the end of the quarter that they really did need to know about medieval history. And even more than needing to know, they enjoyed it, and they're going to go on and they're going to read more medieval history, and their lives will be a little bit different for having learned something about a world that's been dead for 600 years.
We can't make judgments, or very good judgments, about where we're going if we don't know where we've been.
Well, I think that's right. And students who enter the university next year will have been born in 1980, some of them. There's a whole lot of human experience that happened before they were born. and it connects to their world. But they're not going to come in knowing that or presuming that. And to me, that's the challenge, to give them a sense that this world 1,000, 1,500 years ago actually matters vitally to the world that they live in.
Also on the subject of rewards, do you find that you are learning from the give and take in a classroom setting?
I think one of the great false dichotomies that you hear about at a research university is teaching versus scholarship. And I've always found that it would be better to think in terms of scholarship, with underlying it, the two parts of scholarship being teaching and doing research. And I think that teaching is a rich part of a scholarly tradition. It's a rich part of scholarship. And I find that in a lot of ways, there's feedback between the work that we do individually in our research and what we do in the classroom. Not necessarily directly one-to-one, but I think they complement each other in ways that I've sometimes found myself in mid-lecture thinking, oh man, aha, there's something interesting that I hadn't thought about before, but it only comes about because a student asks a question that I wouldn't have thought of, or makes a comment that pushes me in a different direction. I think the two are very complementary.
Is that a common experience for all of you?
Yeah, when you teach, it gives you a sharp edge that you continually are faced with questions you can't answer from your students, and by helping them find the answers, and then by working on those answers yourself, you continue to learn, and it really, allows you to be a lifelong learner and not sort of plateau. And I think I've probably learned as much from my students or more than I've probably given them.
What about responsibilities for you people? When you enter a classroom, what responsibilities do you take on? David?
I think the main responsibility that I take on is to see that my students learn things any way that they can. So it's not necessarily by my lecturing to them, but rather by my setting up for them some really interesting areas that they are going to explore. So I really look at myself almost as a facilitator in the classroom more than as an instructor per se.
To me, the basic responsibility is absolute respect for the students. And everything flows from that these are intelligent, committed people, and I'm going to challenge them. And the reason I'm going to challenge them is because I respect what they can do. And they may not perhaps have discovered yet just how much they can do, but I'm going to push them.
Similar?
Well, I teach in an area that, unlike some of the others around the table, my students come in and they think they have the answers. I teach criminology, and one of the things that's rampant in our society is everyone has the answer. So one of the things I view as my responsibility is to get them to sort of shake up what they think are the definitive answers on things, to be challenging of themselves. The best way to do that, I've found, is for me to model that for them. So rather than coming in with a set of answers, come in with a set of options and then challenge what I just laid out before them, and then give them an opportunity to do some of that thinking on their own.
How is your profession changing? Is it changing? Is the traditional curriculum with its division of knowledge into scholarly disciplines being transformed? Do you see any indication that that's the case?
Oh, I think it's happening. I mean, historians like to think that everyone else is becoming an historian. We have some hopes. Yes, sure. I'm also chair of Jewish Studies, which is a classic kind of interdisciplinary program. I think the sense that what we're doing here is not so much transferring a body of information, but what we're actually doing is talking about how you deal with information, how you process it, how you can reshape it. What we teach are questions and approaches to answers, not a set list of answers. I think we're perhaps more aware of that now than we were.
Is this interdisciplinary approach the wave of the future?
I think the words you hear on campus most frequently are interdisciplinary and international, particularly for those of us in the social sciences. We need to be less myopic about our disciplines and about where we live, and look outside of our disciplines for ideas and new approaches to things. Look outside the United States for different ways of thinking about, different ways of approaching things.
Do you buy into that?
Yeah, I think that using an interdisciplinary approach has been done for a long time. It just hasn't been called that, and I think people who've been successful have done that. Certainly where I'm located at the medical school, that's been I think crucial for teaching and for learning and for patient care to use all disciplines and to share in those.
I'm teaching a class right now in computer animation to computer science students, art students, music students, and architecture students, all undergraduates in the same class. And it's just fantastic to have the students working together and sharing their individual talents, not trying to become the other type of student, but all contributing what they can to an overall production. It's been really exciting.
Well, thank you all for a good story well told, I guess is the line. Dr. Doug Paugh, Bob Crutchfield, David Salison, and Bob Stacy, winners of the University of Washington's Distinguished Teaching Awards. You're watching live coverage of Commencement 1997 on UWTV.
You know, when you look around the pavilion, you'll see a lot of former distinguished teachers. Many of the marshals down on the floor. Today's commencement traffic cops won this award in years past, and all these people volunteer for this duty. This is a celebration for all of them as well. As Bob Stacy just mentioned in the interview, there is mutual respect in the learning that goes on around here. And faculty members are justifiably proud of the accomplishments of these young and, in many cases, not so young students.
I feel right at home.
Well, you should, Jim.
This is a colorful ceremony filled with a whole bunch of tradition. The robes and gowns that you see reflect the height of fashion design of the 12th or so century. There was a practical side of this clothing then. Central heating was in short supply, and buildings notoriously drafty in those days. A good hooded gown was one very good way to deal with the elements then.
And there's symbolism in both the styles and colors that you're seeing today. If you look closely, you'll see that the bachelor's and master's degree candidates are wearing black, and their headgear is the mortarboard with a tassel hanging on the left side. The color of the tassels denote the school or college conferring the degree for undergraduate students. If you spot a blue tassel, you'll be looking at a business major. An orange tassel goes along with an engineer, and so on. There are about 20 different colors in all.
And those sporting the really colorful outfits are advanced degree candidates and the university faculty members. You can identify them by the hoods attached to their gowns. The colors vary for master degree candidates, something akin to the undergraduate tassels that you mentioned a little earlier, Pam.
And when you see a hood of purple and gold, you'll be looking at a UW doctoral candidate wearing, appropriately enough, the university colors and the official UW tam. And that's why the faculty attire is so colorful here, because they hail from colleges and universities from all over the world.
The pavilion seldom looks this good. Takes about a month to transform this sports arena into what you see here today. The basketball court is removed, the stage built, all the banners, flags, and the plants are then added.
But if things go as planned, the pavilion will be closed for about a year in either 1998 or 1999. For a major facelift, the seating capacity will go from 7,900 to about 10,000. The roof will be removed, as well as the infamous columns that now restrict your views. When the renovation is completed, this will be a more practical sports facilities, but it will still retain the original character of the building.
I don't think anyone will miss the columns, however.
I know I won't.
The pavilion was named for a legendary character around here, Clarence Heck Edmondson, and he was around here for a long time. Heck coached basketball for the UW from 1921 to 1947, which may set some sort of a record for a coach's tenure, actually.
Well, another longtime member of our cast is the person who coordinates these ceremonies. Bev Gessel heads the Office of Public Exercises, and she's been at this for 24 years now. With any kind of luck, she may just surpass Heck Edmondson's record.
This is not an entirely unrehearsed ceremony, but most of it is. Students don't show up until the very last minute. Then they have spent 4 or more years practicing that.
That's true.
Fortunately, the event is planned well ahead of time, choreographed to the minutest detail, we are told. All that is done by Bev Gessel and her staff. The marshals know who goes where and how to get them there, and somehow it all works out.
You know, if these exercises actually move outdoors next year, Bev may decide to bag it after 24 years. After all, where can you locate 10,000, sure, 10,000 umbrellas at the spur of the moment? Or maybe we should think about Gore-Tex gowns?
Something new in the way of graduation attire.
Well, all of the students graduating today have filed in, and we are sitting waiting for the President's party, and
The President's party is now entering,
It
as a
is.
matter of fact,
Here it
right on
comes.
cue. It is led by Ron Moore, the UW Marshal, who officially opens this event. He is followed by President McCormick, members of the Board of Regents, the Provost, and the Deans, today's commencement speaker, and other dignitaries.
And that lethal-looking item being carried by the marshal is the mace. It actually was a lethal weapon in medieval days, but it also served as a symbol of status and authority, and that's its role here today, to confer a sort of stamp of approval on these ceremonies.
We're going to do a short production piece on the mace. It's something most of us don't get a chance to see. It's only on display in the Regents' Room of Gerberding Hall, and it's something well worth the seeing close up. It's the work of one, probably more, very talented craftspeople. Here you see the shaft made of dark rosewood, decorated in gold. The entire mace weighs about 5 pounds and is about 3 feet long. As we get closer to the top, you will see the triangular headpiece of gold-plated sterling silver. That headpiece is capped by a miniature reproduction of the prominent feature on campus, Drumheller Fountain, again, Frosh Pond. Now you see a close-up of the headpiece. There is an engraving on each side of it. This one shows the seal of the university. On this side you see a representation of the original university building on the old territorial campus. And the last engraving is of Denny Hall, the oldest building on campus, circa 1895.
which you tuned in for is about to begin. So we invite you to sit back, be sure to applaud at appropriate places, and wish these young people, as we do, the very best. They are collectively the class of 1997 at the University of Washington.
The commencement exercises of the University of Washington will be opened with the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner by Andrew Childs, voice student in the School of Music. The audience will please rise.
Can you see why the dawn's early light was so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. It is my pleasure to present Dr. Richard L. McCormick, President of the University of Washington, who will preside over these exercises.
Welcome to the 122nd Commencement Ceremony of the University of Washington. Commencement ceremonies are an expression of academic traditions going back hundreds of years, and they symbolize some of the most fundamental values of our civilization, most particularly the pursuit of truth, the preservation of freedom, and the cultivation of a climate of civility. These ceremonies are also festive, celebrating the commencement of new activities and new challenges in the lives of the graduates, as well as the successful conclusion of one phase of their formal education. The diversity of this university is nearly as striking as its distinction, and the graduates today are completing academic courses of study which reflect the complexity of this society and the intellectual concerns of our faculty and students. I am honored, therefore, to be the first to congratulate formally the degree award recipients and to welcome all of you to these ceremonies. These graduates should be very proud of themselves, and I know that all the rest of us are very proud of them. It is appropriate, therefore, that we all stand up, everyone, including the graduates, and applaud the class of 1997. And now I think the graduates should applaud their families and friends who have supported them through the years. Please be seated. Some statistics may be of interest to you. Over the past academic year, more than 6,300 students have earned the bachelor's degree, and more than 9,200 new degrees overall have been awarded by the University of Washington. About 53% of the bachelor's and 56% of the master's degrees were earned by women. 44% of the new lawyers are women, as are 54% of the new physicians and 30% of the new dentists. 41% of the new PhDs were earned by women. Over 4,500 of this year's graduates are participating in the two ceremonies today, and many others have participated in separate ceremonies in various schools and colleges. Some are doing both. Each year, the number of students participating in these ceremonies has increased, and as far as we can tell, the number this year is the largest in the history of the university. We are very pleased to have you and your families and friends here. We now hold two ceremonies. This morning, a ceremony was held for the College of Arts and Sciences Arts, Humanities, and Social Science departments. This afternoon, we honor graduates of Arts and Sciences Science departments and the university's other schools and colleges. The splendid music you've been listening to during the processional, and which you will be hearing more of later in the program, is being provided for us this afternoon by students from the School of Music's Wind Ensemble under the direction of Professor Timothy Salzman. As you can tell, they are gifted musicians, and we greatly appreciate their participation today. Ultimate responsibility for the University of Washington lies with the members of the Board of Regents, 9 citizens of the state who were appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state Senate. These dedicated men and women serve without pay and devote many hours each year to the welfare of our university. 6 of our regents are with us this afternoon, and I would like to introduce them at this time. First, the Vice President of the Board of Regents, Ann E. Daly, Regent Mari J. Clack, Regent Scott D. Oakey, Regent H. John Runstadt, Regent Shelley Yap, Regent Cindy Zender, ladies and gentlemen, the Regents of the University of Washington. In addition to the Regents, we have seated on the platform this afternoon the Chief Academic and Administrative Officers of the University, including the Provost, whom you will meet in a moment, the Vice Presidents, the Deans of the schools and colleges, who will be introduced in due course, the leadership of the Faculty Senate, the elected student leadership on campus, the President of the Alumni Association, and faculty members, professors emeriti, and other representatives from the various schools, colleges, and departments of the university. I would also like to acknowledge more than 150 members of the faculty here today serving as commencement marshals. Their names are listed on page 9 of the commencement program. The Chief Academic and Budget Officer of the University of Washington is Provost Lee L. Huntsman. Provost Huntsman was appointed in March after serving several months as acting provost, and we welcome him today to his first commencement in his new role. Lee?
In order to strengthen the university's dedication to teaching excellence, the university each year presents distinguished teaching awards to faculty and excellence in teaching awards to graduate assistants. Many elements of the university community participate in the process of identifying and selecting these individuals who rank foremost among their peers in teaching excellence. 4 University of Washington professors and 2 graduate students who have teaching responsibilities have been selected to receive awards this year. I will ask them to rise and remain standing until all 6 have been introduced. The recipients of the Distinguished Teaching Awards are Robert Stacy, Professor of History, Robert Crutchfield, Associate Professor of Sociology, Douglas Powell, Associate Professor of Medicine, and David Salison, Associate Professor of Computer Science and Engineering. The recipients of the Excellence in Teaching Awards are Emer Dooley, Teaching Assistant in Management and Organization, and Braden Meckley, Teaching Assistant in Classics, who could not be with us today. Selected by a committee of faculty, students, and alumni, these honorees were cited for their superior mastery of their disciplines and their ability to transmit knowledge, and for their concern for students. We are proud of our teaching faculty, and the honor these recipients receive today is an especially precious one to a member of the academic community. Please join me in applauding these exceptional teachers. The university also presents an award in recognition of outstanding public service on the part of a university faculty or staff member. This year's recipient is Anne Streisguth, Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. Professor Streisguth is not able to be with us this afternoon, but I will present her award in absentia. Professor Streisguth is an internationally known expert on fetal alcohol syndrome, or FAS, and she has headed the university's fetal alcohol and drug unit for 24 years. During those years, she has spent countless hours in uncompensated work to prevent, treat, and mitigate the effects of FAS. Her testimony before governing boards has played a key role in raising public awareness and setting public policy. She has been a community activist, has served on national panels and boards, and has spoken at workshops around this country and indeed around the world. She is currently completing a book on FAS for families and communities, a book from which all proceeds will go to the FAS Research Fund. Professor Streisguth also serves as a counselor and an advocate for individual families, women struggling to overcome alcohol dependency, parents searching for help with FAS children, and children trying to make the most out of damaged lives have all been the beneficiaries of her care and her knowledge. For a lifetime of effort to protect the unborn, educate the public, and help afflicted families, the University of Washington commends her. Please join me.
Since 1932, we have presented a medal to the graduating senior who has achieved the most distinguished academic record at the university. Will Ben Julian Augustin Palanca please come forward? Ben grew up in Everett and graduated from Cascade High School in 1993, one of 4 students ranked #1 in the class, and president of the National Honor Society. He entered the UW that fall, and in his 4 years as a student here, he has accumulated many more honors than I have time to list. He's been on the Dean's List every year, was awarded the Junior Medal for highest academic achievement in his junior class, was elected to Phi Beta Kappa as a junior, and won a prestigious Barry M. Goldwater Scholarship for students who excel in math and science. He has been a teaching assistant for senior-level courses in biochemistry and was active all 4 years in Beta, the Biological Honor Society, serving as its president this past year. Ben graduates today summa cum laude with 2 Bachelor of Science degrees, 1 in biology and 1 in biochemistry, and with honors in both. Grades are not the sole... You're getting a lot of applause here. Grades are not the sole determinant of this award. The committee that selects the recipient looks at other things as well, such as the number of honors and upper division courses and other factors, but grades are important. Ben is graduating with a grade point average of 3.96. He achieved this record while taking a wide range of challenging science courses and participating in the undergraduate honors program. Ben has also, since spring quarter of his freshman year, taken full advantage of one of the special opportunities the UW offers its undergraduates, working with faculty in research. Under his faculty mentor, pathology professor Peter Rabinovich, Ben carried out research on DNA damage and repair with applications to cancer and aging studies. He is already the co-author of 2 research publications. Incredibly, Ben also has time for fun. He loves biking and is an avid music fan with eclectic tastes. On a single weekend recently, he managed to take in a chamber music concert at Meany Hall, a concert at the Columbia Gorge, and 2 days of the Seattle Folklife Festival. This is the 3rd UW commencement for Ben's parents, naturalized U.S. citizens who are proud both of their Philippine heritage and of their children's success in their adopted country. One of their daughters graduated from the UW with an MFA degree, and another earned a BS degree and is currently enrolled in our MD-PhD program. Ben will also be pursuing an MD-PhD, but at a different university. This fall, he will join the program at Washington University in St. Louis. He plans a career in medical research. It is my pleasure to present you, Ben, this medal in recognition of your outstanding academic achievements at this university. At this time, I would also like to recognize all those students who were candidates for the President's Medal by virtue of academic performance in the top 0.5% of all graduating seniors in their respective colleges. These students, along with the President's Medalist, are today graduating with the university's highest baccalaureate honor, summa cum laude. Their names are listed on page 12 of the commencement program. Also listed there are the names of students who are graduating magna cum laude and cum laude. Since 1938, the university and the Alumni Association have presented an award to a former University of Washington student whose work has attained national or international prominence. The Alumnus Summa Laude Dignatus Award, which means alumnus worthy of the highest praise, is the highest honor bestowed by the University of Washington. The recipient is selected by a committee of university faculty and alumni. It gives me great pleasure today to add to the long and distinguished list of individuals who have received this award the name of Chuck Close, a painter celebrated for both his art and his life. Mr. Close is unable to be with us this afternoon as he had to return to New York after this morning's ceremony. I invite Dr. Larry Matsuda, President of the Alumni Association, to step to the lectern and receive the award on Mr. Close's behalf. Mr. Close is a native of Monroe, Washington. He studied art at the UW with Alden Mason, graduating with a BA in 1962. He then went on to Yale University, where he earned both BFA and MFA degrees. There he began working on the large photorealist portraits that made him, in a few years, one of the best-known figures in contemporary American art. Each Close portrait starts with a huge Polaroid photograph overlaid with a penciled grid. He then builds the painting grid by grid in a process he has compared to knitting. These striking portraits hang in museums and private collections around the world, including the National Gallery in Washington, D.C., and the Tate Gallery in London. In 1988, at the height of his career, Mr. Close suffered an illness that left him almost totally paralyzed. He nevertheless resumed painting from the earliest days of his physical therapy, determined to continue making the large-scale portraits that were his life's work. The recent photographs are widely believed to be his best. The paintings Close has produced since his illness, says one art critic, are his most electric, most outrageous, and also most beautiful. In the fall of 1998, the Museum of Modern Art in New York will present a full retrospective of the last 30 years of his work. For his brilliant and courageous artistic achievement, his alma mater honors Chuck Close as its 1997 Alumnus Summa Laude Dignatus. Student government is an important component of the governance of this institution, and its leadership is called on regularly to represent student views on a wide range of issues at the university. I am pleased to introduce the President of the Associated Students of the University of Washington, Mr. John Linder.
Thank you, Dr. McCormick. Hello, everyone, and good day. Commencement is a time of renewal, a time to move upward and onward, a time to celebrate and strengthen the communities that we have constructed. My community is composed of the hearts and minds and souls of my friends. My community has seen me at my best and at my worst. It has seen me at the height of my glory and at the darkest times. But yet it has always been there for me. My community will leave an indelible mark on my journey through life. Of all the things that we do, sharing our life with others is the most powerful. Greatness is not measured by the wealth or power you possess, or the monuments that we construct to ourselves. Time will wash all of these away. Time even washes away pain. Our relationships are what is important. Greatness is measured by the friends we keep and by the depths of those friendships. Friendship can change the world. It can give a child a sense of worth and of hope. It can bring peace to a tense situation. It can even comfort a friend at their greatest time of need. These are the bonds that we must build. These relationships allow us to leave footprints on the sands of time. These are the footprints that we leave in the hearts and minds and souls of our friends. By creating these bonds, we encourage others to do the same and build bonds that will tie us all together. We must remember that time is fleeting and that we must renew our community before it slips away. So I challenge you to leave an indelible mark on your community by touching the hearts and minds and souls of others. To close, I'd like to share some of Longfellow's Psalm of Life. He encourages us to live in the present. Life is real. Life is earnest. And the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. In life's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb, driven cattle. Be a hero in the strife. Lives of great ones all remind us we may make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints in the sands of time. Let us then be up and doing, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. Thank you and congratulations.
This afternoon's commencement speaker is Meg Greenfield, Pulitzer Prize-winning editor of the Washington Post's editorial page. Miss Greenfield grew up in Seattle and is an alumna of the Bush School. She earned a BA in English from Smith College, graduating summa cum laude, and spent a year at Cambridge University as a Fulbright Scholar. In 1957, Miss Greenfield joined Reporter magazine, where she worked as a researcher, a correspondent, and finally the magazine's Washington editor. In 1968, she moved to the Washington Post, first as an editorial writer and then as deputy editorial page editor. In 1978, she received a Pulitzer Prize for editorial writing. She assumed her present position at the Post in 1979. Since 1974, she has also written a column for Newsweek magazine. During her early years at the Post, Miss Greenfield helped shape and articulate editorial decisions that gave the paper national stature, most notably publication of the Pentagon Papers and pursuit of the Watergate story. As editorial page editor, she has won high praise and a worldwide audience for the Post's strong, lively, and independent editorial and op-ed pages. She is known especially for commentary on ethics in public affairs, for astute observations of the Washington scene, and for the wit and verve of her prose. She is also one of very few women in the profession to have reached such a level of authority and influence. Since 1987, Miss Greenfield has funded the Jim Greenfield Scholarship in the UW Classics Department as a memorial to her brother. She has also reestablished strong ties to the Northwest in recent years. On her frequent visits here, a wide circle of Seattle area friends now enjoys the generous hospitality and brilliant conversation for which she has long been noted in Washington, D.C. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Meg Greenfield.
Thank you.
President McCormick, faculty, visiting bigwigs, and all of you receiving degrees today. It is a particular joy for me to be here. I grew up just a few blocks away and was from earliest memory in awe of this place. As a child of 5, I already knew from my endless singing of Heaven Help the Foes of Washington that it was harder to push them over the line than past the Dardanelles. Although I, of course, could not have told you what the Dardanelles were, and actually wouldn't want to be pressed too hard on the point today. Since those long-gone times, this university has become ever more distinguished, the home base of Nobel laureates, of new scientific disciplines and technologies, and of nationally and internationally renowned scholars in the arts and humanities as well. So anyone earning a degree today has reason to be exceedingly proud. You deserve all the congratulation that will be coming your way. As your commencement speaker, I am aware that it is my duty to talk to you of the future, of the challenges and promises that lie ahead. But I don't want to. In the first place, I don't know any more about them than you do. In fact, I suspect the reason we designated commencement speakers hold forth so confidently about the future, standing up here in our state-of-the-art 12th century clothing, is that we know for an actuarial fact that we will not be around to face the music when all our predictions turn out wrong. But there is another reason for not dwelling on what lies ahead. It is, I believe, most of us are already sick to death of all the grandiose talk about the new century and the new millennium, and they aren't even here yet. This is surely the case in the other Washington, the newly and unaccountably sex-crazed national capital where I live most of the time. Political leaders on all sides can scarcely stop exclaiming about their own awesome burdens in relation to showing in this new millennium, about how very difficult it is to be responsible for ushering it in. An unhelpful columnist observed not long ago, in response, that it actually isn't difficult at all. All the politicians have to do is stand there. 1 minute it will be one millennium, and the next minute it will be the next. This did not go over well, representing as it does an intolerable threat to our concept of our indispensability. If a whole new millennium can get here without our help, what other vital matters are we in Washington not needed for? Well, anyway, what I plan to do today is even worse than just not talking about what lies ahead. I intend to look briefly but resolutely in the wrong direction. I want to talk about how you should look at the past, at the rich range of personal and institutional histories of which each of you is a distinctive part. This seems to me just now the far more important subject, for I note that while we in this country seem able to speak with endless, even stupefying amiability about the future, we no longer seem capable of holding even a minimally civil conversation about the past. It is the past over which we argue most angrily these days and about which we obviously most deeply care. That should be no mystery, for it is the multiple histories of which we are all products, our gender, our race, our religion, our ethnic background, our family tree, our nationality, from which we derive our very identity. By that I mean our conception of our worth, our shame, and our pride, our sense of superiority or grievance or special destiny. We lay claim to territory and social status, to entitlement and deference, or to sympathy and solicitude on the basis of our understanding of this past. Small wonder, then, that in our own somewhat unmoored, if not unhinged and irreverent times, when all the once accepted certitudes seem to be up for consideration again, so many battles are being fought for control of the narrative, for control of the accepted version of who we are. If you doubt this is a major preoccupation, only consider that both at home and abroad, it underlies the most violently contested political issues of the day. In places as different as Eastern Europe, South Africa, and South America, peoples who have emerged from tyranny are agonizing over who among them was culpable, who deserves punishment, who deserves reparation, and so forth. There is the Swiss bank matter. There is the Tuskegee matter. There are our own great quarrels over the historical roles of race and gender in our society. The eye can hardly find a spot to rest where conflict over the legacy of the past is not disturbing the peace of the present. I offer 3 rules that I think can be of help in coming to terms with your own multiple histories amid all the turbulence. First, be curious and open-minded about them. They are probably more morally ambiguous and complicated, and therefore interesting than you suppose. Get the good of that. Don't try to ignore or sanitize or rewrite the record. From which the next 2 rules follow. Don't be tempted to pretty up the past, and conversely, don't become, in a latter-day fashion, a single-minded disparager of it, endlessly mining history only for evidence of how benighted people were in contrast to our own wonderful, evolved selves. On the first point, I offer as an example the lively history of this place. Both Seattle and the University of Washington come to us from a mixture of pioneer actions that were brave, inspired, valiant, hilarious, uproarious, unseemly, and greedy by turn. For contrary to what is often assumed elsewhere in the country, neither this city nor this university sprang full-blown from a latte machine in the mid-1970s, while a lot of Vivaldi was playing in the background. In my own memory, the university in the years just before and after the war was known as the site of great disputation and political energy, of pretty vicious combat between right and left, and between the academics and the government establishment that funded them. It was the locus of early labor union and left-wing agitation, and of angry right-wing reaction. And it was also the scene, as we wide-eyed children living nearby sometimes heard, to our great excitement, of a certain amount of unconventional libertine behavior. At least so our parents regularly complained. Moreover, this university owed its more distant origins not just to the noble vision of some of its founding patrons, but also to the hard-eyed calculations of a bunch of scrappy, acquisitive settlers. My favorite account records that in the competition among settlements in the territory for institutions that would produce money and stature, it was finally negotiated that, quote, Olympia got the capital, Walla Walla got the penitentiary, and Seattle got the university. This was thought to have been a really bum deal financially for Seattle, since, as the chronicler noted, the territory had no trouble at all producing politicians and criminals, but scholars were another matter. I don't bring this up to suggest the university has rewritten its history. It has not. Only to illustrate how mixed and robust and unsusceptible to simple pigeonholing most of our histories are, how infinitely more worthy of study than your average drum-beating official handbook. But we don't always accept the ambiguities. They can be too uncomfortable and socially inconvenient, and that is the first error. The second is responding by trying to pretty that past up. In fact, it seems to be a law of human nature that by the time any of us is settled, powerful, and important enough to have a history at all, whether as a family, a people, or a nation, we tend to think we are just a little too good for it. Thus, the effort to airbrush and edit our ancestors, to clean up their act so as to make them worthy of us. We recreate them as paragons and heroes to help justify our own pretensions and ambitions. At the simplest level here, we are talking about snobbery. It is a human impulse as old as the hills, of course. Life and literature overflow with satirical accounts of the never-ending quest for genealogical evidence of one's superiority to the household or tribe next door. Such accounts are all, in my view, variations on the alleged response of the English bishop's wife to Charles Darwin's 19th century anthropological bombshell, the hypothesis that we might all be descended in the first instance from, of all things, apes. Now here was a true genealogical emergency. Let us hope it is not true, she is reported to have exclaimed once the initial shock wore off. And if it is, let us pray it does not become generally known. Often as not, we're talking of pretty innocent, even silly stuff like this when we talk of the impulse to prettify the past. But we know it is at least as common for such falsification and idealization of our roots to lead to a dangerous social and ethnic and national smugness. These reinvented ancestors, who never lost a battle except as the other side foully cheated, who had the right on their side at all times, who knew how to use a knife and fork before anybody else, can become a rationalization for every kind of repression, crusade, vendetta, and as we now say, cleansing that can be imagined. Less dramatically, such beliefs may lead to routine, almost unwitting cruelties to others in our daily lives. And finally, the impulse deprives us of the glories of our true heritage. We lose the chance to see our past whole and understand who we truly are. The third and final error people make is in large part a reaction to such relentless glorification of the past, or at least it began that way. It got its start in recent decades as a refreshingly skeptical refusal to take at face value the familiar chauvinisms and fictions and pieties that mark so much of our collective biography. It sought to debunk and deconstruct them. Well and good, except that debunking and deconstructing as a way of life, as a kind of relentless carpet bombing of the nation's founding myths, can soon become a cause in itself, not a corrective. And when this happens, the zealous overcorrectors turn out not to be all that different from the prettifiers for whom they have such contempt. For they share with them both a tendency to ignore evidence that doesn't support their bias and a tendency to draw the wrong conclusion from what they find. Many of my fellow journalists are among the professional practitioners, I fear, of this custom. We often present a stark, one-sided reading of the historical record that is as unrealistic in its thoroughgoing negativity as is the idolater's implausibly sunny version, which is trying to expose. And not just errant journalists, but advocates of all manner of causes tend to slip into the practice. So what a historical figure may have done that our society would nowadays condemn will not be mitigated for them by what that same figure might also have done that was praiseworthy. The vice doesn't live uneasily with the virtue, as we know it does in all of our own real lives. Rather, it is seen as negating the virtue altogether. Our forebears, thus interpreted, are not to be forgiven their moral contradictions and shortcomings, no matter how majestic some of their other deeds may have been. Unsurprisingly, such an approach tends to generate a misplaced arrogance, little different from that of your most ridiculous basic social snob. For the message drawn seems to be how much better and purer, more fully ethically developed the debunker is than those clods who did things their barbaric way in the past. Never mind that at the same time they may have been writing the Constitution and the Bill of Rights or inventing the wheel. This is exactly the wrong message, of course, for facing up to what we may rightly see as the moral howlers of some of our founders and progenitors should not make us cocky any more than it should make us ashamed. It should make us introspective. It should lead us not to condemn them condescendingly, but rather to wonder about ourselves. If they, say a giant of Thomas Jefferson's stature, were capable of so much unwitting insensibility and inconsistency, what may we be guilty of right now in our own value systems that goes unrecognized by us? What will Americans a century, who knows a millennium hence, be saying about our own moral blind spots? The point is simple. It is first that a proper understanding of your own history is essential to your living a good life. Second, that this will expand, not narrow and limit, your sympathetic connection with others. And third, it should have a humbling, not a self-aggrandizing effect on you. If it doesn't accomplish these things, you're doing something wrong. And now, speaking of being humble, I will add one final observation. Every commencement speaker in 1997 must be aware that it was in a Harvard commencement address 50 years ago this June that the great soldier and statesman George C. Marshall unveiled his momentous plan for the rebuilding of Europe. That would be reproach enough for those of us who come after, but it's not even the really humbling part. The really humbling part is that the whole thing took him only 12 minutes. I have already spoken longer than General Marshall, and not a single country is going to be the better for it, let alone economically transformed, so I will stop. But not before I have taken one more opportunity to congratulate you all on your splendid achievement. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to present the various degrees to all candidates. The audience is requested to remain in their seats until the conclusion of today's ceremony. Candidates for the doctor's degree in the School of Medicine will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Daniel Hunt.
Mr. President, it is my privilege to present to you today the 150 candidates from the School of Medicine for the degree Doctor of Medicine. I recommend to you that all who have completed their graduation requirements from the School of Medicine be awarded this doctoral degree. These students were honored in earlier ceremonies because many have already taken postgraduate training positions around the country. Those that are here today will come forward with the other doctoral candidates.
Candidates for doctor's degrees in the School of Dentistry will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Dan Middaugh.
Mr. President, it is my great pleasure and honor to present a list of doctoral candidates from the School of Dentistry. I recommend that all who fulfilled their requirements be awarded the doctoral degrees. These graduates were honored in separate ceremonies and are today in the middle of a 3-day licensure exam. I'm sure they would rather be here.
Candidates for Juris Doctor degrees in the School of Law, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Roland Hjorth.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Faculty of Law, I have the honor to present a list of the 170 candidates for the degree of Juris Doctor, with a recommendation that each who has fulfilled the requirements be awarded that degree. Ceremonies to honor these graduates were held elsewhere. The law graduates participating in this ceremony will come forward with the other doctoral candidates.
Candidates for Doctor of Pharmacy degrees in the School of Pharmacy will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Sidney D. Nelson.
Mr. President, it is an honor to present you a list of the 13 candidates for the degree of Doctor of Pharmacy. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Pharmacy be awarded their doctorate degrees. These graduates were honored previously in separate ceremonies held elsewhere. They will come forward with the other doctoral candidates.
On behalf of the regents and the faculties of the respective schools, I am pleased to confer upon these candidates the degree of Doctor of Medicine, Doctor of Dental Surgery, Juris Doctor, or Doctor of Pharmacy.
Candidates for doctoral degrees will be presented by Dean Marcia Landolt of the Graduate School.
Mr. President, here with us today are candidates who've completed all requirements for the degrees of Doctor of Philosophy or Doctor of Education. I request them to rise. Mr. President, on behalf of the deans of the schools and colleges and the graduate faculty, I am pleased and honored to present the candidates who are being awarded the highest degree conferred by this university. The names of those receiving doctoral degrees are listed in the commencement program, along with the titles of their dissertations and the names of their faculty supervisors. I recommend that these candidates be conferred their respective doctoral degrees.
On behalf of the regents and the graduate faculty, I am pleased to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy or Doctor of Education. Congratulations. You have achieved high academic distinction, and this university salutes you. You will be presented today with a memento of this graduation exercise, so please come forward.
James Paul Ahrens, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Rashid M. Alothman, Doctor of Philosophy in Chemistry.
Lawrence Renee Antle, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Charles Edward Apeadu, Doctor of Philosophy, Business Administration.
Judith E. Bishop, Doctor of Education.
Linda D. Bly, Doctor of Philosophy in Epidemiology.
Marianne Bozette, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Ethan R. Bradford, Doctor of Philosophy in Physics.
Patricia Ann Brown, Doctor of Education, Education.
Keely Maureen Bumstead, Doctor of Philosophy in Biological Structure.
Suzanne Bunton, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Kelly Catherine Chappell, Doctor of Philosophy in Education.
Rita Elaine Cheek, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Ying Chui Chen, Doctor of Philosophy in Atmospheric Sciences.
Moro S. Costa, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Kingsum Chow, Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Science and Engineering.
Laurel Melanie Calgin, Doctor of Philosophy, Pathology.
Annette Lynn Archer Conroy, Doctor of Philosophy in Education.
Emily Etling Elliott, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Amy Elizabeth Coville, Doctor of Philosophy in Education.
Clifford Richard Curry, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Mark T. Enns, Doctor of Philosophy in Mechanical Engineering.
Wan Fan, Doctor of Philosophy, Biostatistics.
Mark Aaron Fajardo, Doctor of Philosophy in Genetics.
Karina Capps Evans, Doctor of Philosophy, Epidemiology.
Jill R. Goldschneider, Doctor of Philosophy in Electrical Engineering.
Mary Elizabeth Walker Fisher, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Ted Stern, Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Mathematics.
Michelle Carey Ferguson, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Michael J. Feely, Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Science and Engineering.
James P. Golubic, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Joanne Feitz Kaufman, Doctor of Philosophy in Forest Resources.
Sigurdur M. Garderson, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Michael I. Hollander, Doctor of Philosophy in Mathematics.
Bingzhang David Guan, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Peter B. Gilbert, Doctor of Philosophy in Biostatistics.
Francis Green, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Haley Sun, Doctor of Philosophy in Oceanography.
John Charles Heron, Doctor of Philosophy, Zoology.
Brian Preston Hopkins, Doctor of Philosophy in Mathematics.
Frederick Baden Holt, Doctor of Philosophy, Mathematics.
Daewha Jung, Doctor of Philosophy in Mechanical Engineering.
John Charles Horn, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
David V. Ingerman, Doctor of Philosophy in Mathematics.
M.Y. Jasima, Doctor of Philosophy, Engineering.
Denise Jones Baki, Doctor of Philosophy in Nursing.
David B. Johnson, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Beth Ann Kopyar, Doctor of Philosophy in Speech and Hearing Sciences.
Teresa Ann Jurgens-Coel, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemical Engineering.
Mary Lisa Laux, Doctor of Philosophy in a Special Individual PhD program.
Michael Kautsky, Doctor of Philosophy, Oral Biology, School of Dentistry.
David William Coons, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Pamela Ann Kraus, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Wu Bin Lee, Doctor of Philosophy in Electrical Engineering.
Anne Camille Laflamme, Doctor of Philosophy, Pathobiology.
Chek T. Lim, Doctor of Philosophy in Mechanical Engineering.
Shin Hak Lee, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Cheryl L. Lingle, Doctor of Philosophy in Civil Engineering.
Rufeng Li, Doctor of Philosophy, Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Gustavo Lopez, Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Science and Engineering.
Miles G. Logston, Doctor of Philosophy, Architecture and Urban Planning.
Teresa Clark Moazed, Doctor of Philosophy in Pathobiology.
Neil R. Mackenzie, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Michael Eugene McLean, Doctor of Philosophy in Oceanography.
Margaret Mary Madeline, Doctor of Philosophy, Epidemiology.
Dylan James McNamee, Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Science and Engineering.
Barbara Jane McKean, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Sarah Blanche Mosted, Doctor of Philosophy in Epidemiology.
Seth Charles Moran, Doctor of Philosophy, Geophysics.
Gail Lynn Moe, Doctor of Philosophy in Nutritional Sciences.
Paul Ronald Mobley, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
John Runyon Neergaard, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Shelley Elizabeth Mulligan, Doctor of Philosophy, Special Education.
Brendan John O'Brien, Doctor of Philosophy, Neurobiology and Behavior.
Do Hee Nam, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Admund Rydar Myri, Doctor of Philosophy in Education.
Sudipto Nyogi, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Marion Louise Stone Newhauser, Doctor of Philosophy, Nutritional Science.
Craig Michael Knutson, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Kyung Pak, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Adam B. Olshan, Doctor of Philosophy, Biostatistics.
Roger Carl Palm, Jr., Doctor of Philosophy in Fisheries.
James R. Ortez, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Julie Renee Parnell, Doctor of Philosophy in Bioengineering.
Kimberly Osberg, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Christina L. Peterson, Doctor of Philosophy in Chemistry.
Stephen James Peirce, Doctor of Education, Education.
Robert W. Platt, Doctor of Philosophy in Biostatistics.
Pipat Pichestapong, Doctor of Philosophy, Materials Science and Engineering.
Annabelle Way Reese, Doctor of Philosophy in Chemistry.
Joel Howard Reynolds, Doctor of Philosophy, Interdisciplinary Program in Quantitative Ecology and Resource Management.
Sujan Panyamurthala, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Michael Philip Salisbury, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Hangjun Ruan, Doctor of Philosophy in Biochemistry.
Rosalie Marie Romano, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Mani Prakash, Doctor of Philosophy in Bioengineering.
Robert Louis Rudicelli, Doctor of Philosophy, Materials Science and Engineering.
David H. Salinger, Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Mathematics.
Tristine Marie Samberg, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemistry.
Pamela Richardson, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Anna Lee Quizzle, Doctor of Medicine, Medicine.
Rodney George Sackerson, Doctor of Philosophy, Urban Design and Planning.
Brett Allen Snyder, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemical Engineering.
Jean Elaine Schweitzer, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Dale Charles Schmidt, Doctor of Philosophy, Chemical Engineering.
Stephanie Diane Sarantos, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Venkatraman N. Shankar, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Lauren J. Siebert, Doctor of Philosophy, an interdisciplinary PhD in Urban Design and Planning.
Gregory Smith, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Eric Fernandez, Doctor of Philosophy, Forest Resources.
Virginia C. Stimpson, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Lynn Ailes Sengers, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Alejandro Adrian Sansoni, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Adrian Sengers, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
David Joseph Topping, Doctor of Philosophy, Geological Sciences.
Jasjit S. Suri, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Mitchell James Watrous, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Carol Ann Trenga, Doctor of Philosophy, Environmental Health.
Raymond P. Ward, Doctor of Philosophy, Pharmacology.
Scott Craig Thielman, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Kevin Lewis Wolf, Doctor of Education, Education.
Kathleen Ann Washington, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Bradley Robert White, Doctor of Philosophy, Forest Resources.
Eileen Perkins Visser, Doctor of Philosophy in Fisheries.
Lawrence Yap, Doctor of Philosophy, Electrical Engineering.
Wendell Tyler Welch, Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Mathematics.
Yoshito Yamane, Doctor of Philosophy, Computer Science and Engineering.
Karen Ann Wasselate, Doctor of Philosophy in Physics.
Gretchen M. Zunkel, Doctor of Philosophy, Nursing.
Jiyun Yang, Doctor of Philosophy in Applied Mathematics.
Mingsheng Xia, Doctor of Philosophy, Pathobiology.
Young O Kim, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Farzad Zafari, Doctor of Philosophy, Mechanical Engineering.
Jin Yu, Doctor of Philosophy, Civil Engineering.
Stephen C. Plunsey, Doctor of Philosophy, Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Fei Zhou, Doctor of Philosophy, Physics.
Yvonne Louise Swinth, Doctor of Philosophy, Education.
Sally Lee, Doctor of Philosophy in Biochemistry. Ton Ngo, Doctor of Philosophy in Computer Science. And Michael John Grubiak, Doctor of Education in Education.
Candidates for master's degrees will be presented by Dean Landolt of the Graduate School.
Candidates for the various master's degrees will please rise as their degrees are named and remain standing. Master of Architecture, Master of Business Administration, Master of Health Administration, Master of Landscape Architecture, Master of Laws, Master of Librarianship, Master of Marine Affairs, Master of Nursing, Master of Professional Accounting, Master of Public Health, Master of Science in Aeronautics and Astronautics, Master of Science in Civil Engineering, Master of Science in Engineering, Master of Science in Electrical Engineering, Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering, Master of Science, Master of Social Work, Master of Urban Planning. Mr. President, I would like to introduce Dean Alan D. Glenn of the College of Education to present the master's candidates from that college.
Candidates for the degree of Master of Education or Masters in Teaching will please rise with the other master's candidates.
Mr. President, I would like to introduce Dean Margaret T. Gordon of the Graduate School of Public Affairs to present the master's candidates of that school.
Candidates for the degree of Master of Public Administration in the Graduate School of Public Affairs will please rise with the other master's candidates.
Dean Gordon is about to step down from her administrative post after 9 years of dedicated and distinguished leadership of the Graduate School of Public Affairs. Since this is her last commencement as Dean, please join me in acknowledging her outstanding service to the school and the university.
Mr. President, on behalf of the deans of the schools and colleges and the graduate faculty, I am pleased to present these candidates for their various master's degrees.
On behalf of the regents and the graduate faculty, I am pleased to confer upon each of you your master's degree. Congratulations. You will be presented today with a memento of this graduation exercise, so please come forward.
You are watching the master's degree candidates of the class of 97 at the University of Washington begin to file up to receive their degrees.
And for these master's and doctoral candidates, research has been a great part of their work here. The term research university seems to conjure up this vision of men, invariably, in laboratories, of course, decked out in white coats, and there may be some of that goes on around here. But precious little when you look at some of the world's famous faculty research projects that started here. You find that the faculty members and their students were as likely to be decked out in hip boots or rain gear, plowing through a river or volcanic ash or wood pulp. And many of those students, as we have heard earlier in this broadcast, are actually undergraduates.
There's a lot of competition among research universities for increasingly scarce dollars from the federal government, but the UW has been for years a major winner in that competition. In fact, we ranked number 2 among all of the nation's universities, both public and private, in terms of awards of federal research money.
And this is public money, of course, and we like to think that all of us get a good return for those dollars. That money has been spent to understand and reduce the cost of things like heart disease and diabetes, hearing loss, Alzheimer's, AIDS, to promote women's health and the health of the ecosystems which all of us share.
And there's also a connection between all of this research and the private sector, that is American industry. The businesses that apply the discoveries made by university faculty also support this research. We at the UW get a significant amount of money from licensing these discoveries. We're fifth in the nation in licensing income and third in support from industry for R&D, that is research and development.
Our coverage of commencement from the University of Washington continues now. These are the master's degree candidates filing up to receive their diplomas.
You know, we've heard a lot about the research enterprise here today from our distinguished teachers. We saw the President's Medalist, Ben Julian Augustine Polanca, who has already published 2 research papers in his young undergraduate career. Maybe we have time for a couple of research tales.
The Wood Pulp story is one of fascination. Its main character is Reine Stettler, and he is a retired professor of forest genetics. And in the 1960s, he began to experiment with different species of cottonwood and poplar trees. His aim was to develop a new and fast-growing source of pulp for the paper industry, and it has been a tremendous success story. Just about every major pulp producer in the world is now growing these hybrid poplars, and how they grow to a height of 70, sometimes more feet in the course of 6 years.
Wow. I guess the saying, watching grass grow, doesn't exactly apply here, huh?
It doesn't indeed.
Another project that started at the UW at just about the same time concerns kidney dialysis. Belding Scribner led a team that developed what has since been dubbed the Scribner shunt. The shunt is a U-shaped tube permanently installed between an artery and a vein. In someone suffering from kidney disease, this tube has allowed a kidney dialysis machine to be connected to anyone suffering from this disease as often as necessary, and that's been a real lifesaver.
It has for thousands.
Yeah, this machine, of course, the function of it is to clean impurities from the blood.
If you're a seafood fan, particularly a fan of shellfish, you might find interest to know that university researchers are actively engaged in improving those incredible edibles. The Penco mussel is a direct result of aquaculture achievements in this neck of the woods. Ken Chu, professor of fisheries,
That's
now
really
director.
his name, huh?
You're not the first to note that distinction. But Ken is now the acting director of the school as well, and a well-known authority on aquaculture, doing some genetic manipulation that has given us prime oysters the year around through a technique called triploiding. And he is now working on doing something comparable with our famous gooey duck clam.
I hope he keeps working on that stuff. I love those. I love those oysters. I'm sure, and those mussels and everything. And we are continuing to watch the master's degree candidates. They're almost done, so we'll just let this part of the ceremony go on, and then very, very shortly you'll be seeing the main part of the conferral degree from this afternoon, the bachelor's degrees.
Mr. President, candidates for bachelor's degrees in the various colleges and schools of the university will be presented to you by the several deans. The candidates who have been accepted by the general faculty of the university for their respective degrees are listed in the commencement program. Candidates for bachelor's degrees in the science departments of the College of Arts and Sciences will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Simpson.
Candidates for bachelor's degrees from the College of Arts and Sciences will please rise. Mr. President, I have the honor to present these candidates for the degrees of Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts, and I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Arts and Sciences be awarded their degrees. Candidates from the College of Arts and Sciences will please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the School of Pharmacy will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Nelson.
Will the Bachelor of Science candidates from the School of Pharmacy please rise? Mr. President, it is an honor to present to you a list of 70 candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the 5-year program of the School of Pharmacy be awarded their degrees. The names of these candidates may be found in the commencement program. These graduates were honored previously in separate ceremonies held elsewhere. Candidates will please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the College of Engineering, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Denise D. Denton.
Candidates from the College of Engineering will please rise. It gives me great pleasure, Mr. President, to present these candidates of the College of Engineering for the degrees of Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Science in Engineering, Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical and Astronautical, Ceramic, Civil, Computer, Electrical, Industrial, Mechanical, and Metallurgical Engineering, and Bachelor of Science in Technical Communication. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Engineering be awarded their bachelor's degrees. Candidates in engineering, ladies and gentlemen, will please be seated.
Candidates from the College of Forest Resources will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean David Thorud.
Candidates from the College of Forest Resources will please rise and set a good example for the engineers. Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present these candidates for their bachelor's degrees in forest resources and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Forest Resources be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates from Forest Resources, please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the School of Business Administration will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean William Bradford.
Thank you. The candidates from the School of Business Administration will please rise. Mr. President, it is with much pleasure that I present these candidates for bachelor's degrees in the School of Business Administration and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Business Administration be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the College of Ocean and Fishery Sciences, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Arthur Noel.
Will the candidates from the College of Ocean and Fisheries Sciences please rise? It gives me great pleasure, Mr. President, to present these candidates for bachelor degrees in oceanography and in fisheries. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the baccalaureate requirements in the College of Ocean and Fishery Sciences be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates, please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the School of Nursing will be presented, Mr. President, by Dean Sue Hedgevery.
Candidates for bachelor's degrees from the School of Nursing will please rise. Mr. President, on behalf of the faculty of the School of Nursing, it's my pleasure and honor to present these candidates for the degree Bachelor of Science in Nursing. I recommend that all who have completed the requirements of the School of Nursing be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates, please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the School of Dentistry will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Middaugh.
Will the candidates from the School of Dentistry please rise? Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present a short list of candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Dental Hygiene. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements be awarded their bachelor's degrees. Will the candidates please be seated?
Bachelor candidates from the College of Architecture and Urban Planning will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Jerry V. Finrow.
Will the candidates from the College of Architecture and Urban Planning please rise? Mr. President, I have the distinct honor to present these candidates for bachelor's degrees in architecture, community and environmental planning, landscape architecture, and construction management, and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Architecture and Urban Planning be awarded their respective degrees. Will the candidates please be seated?
Bachelor candidates from the School of Medicine will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Hunt.
Will the bachelor candidates from the School of Medicine please rise? Mr. President, it is a pleasure to present to you the bachelor candidates from the School of Medicine in the specialized degrees of physical therapy, occupational therapy, medical technology, prosthetics, and orthotics. Many of these degrees are being presented absentia, as many have gone on to positions around the country. The candidates please be seated.
Candidates from the School of Social Work will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Nancy Hueyman.
Will the candidates from the School of Social Work please rise? Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present these candidates for their bachelor's degree in social welfare and recommend that all who fulfilled the requirements of the School of Social Work be awarded their respective bachelor degrees. Candidates from the School of Social Work, please be seated.
Candidates from the School of Public Health and Community Medicine will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Gilbert Oman.
Will candidates from the School of Public Health and Community Medicine please rise? Mr. President, it's my great pleasure to present these students and others from our Department of Environmental Health who have earned the Bachelor of Science in Environmental Health and recommend to you that they receive their respective degrees. Candidates, please be seated.
All bachelor candidates from all schools and colleges just presented will please rise. Many of the candidates here today have completed degree programs in summer, autumn, or winter quarters. These candidates, whom we are very glad to have with us, have already received appropriate diplomas. Candidates completing their academic programs this spring will receive their diplomas later this summer. A special memento of this graduation exercise will be presented to all candidates in attendance today. Following President McCormick's citation awarding the various bachelor's degrees, all candidates will be seated immediately and under the direction of the faculty marshals will await their turn to come forward one row at a time.
On behalf of the Regents and the faculty of the university, I am pleased to confer upon each of you your bachelor's degree. Congratulations, your university is very proud of you. May I now ask you to be seated and await your turn to come forward.
And here they are, the undergraduates of the class of 1997. I'm Pam Stewart, and this is the 122nd Commencement of the University of Washington, coming to you from Heck Edmondson Pavilion in Seattle on UWTV, Cable Channel 27.
And I'm Jim Stutzman. It is a great day for these students, increasingly rowdy.
I'll say.
It is a day, a culmination, really, of a lot of hard and rewarding work, some long, probably strange hours, more than likely some crummy food, and some of the most enjoyable years these young scholars will remember.
And talk about memorable. In just a moment, you'll hear from one graduating senior whose accomplishments during the course of her undergraduate career here can certainly be called that. Her name is Valerie Payton, and she leaves here today with 2 degrees, one in Russian and one in physics. She's been honored by NASA, invited to talk about her undergraduate research experience with members of Congress, and awarded a no-strings-attached travel fellowship, which she will use to fulfill a childhood dream of traveling to Russia. Several weeks ago, I had a chance to chat with Valerie about her years here and her future plans, and here is a portion of that interview. Let me ask you, hark back to when you were in high school and you were beginning to think about college. What kinds of, what factors entered into your analysis of where you would go to college? What were the most important things? And how did you end up coming to the University of Washington?
Well, it's a really good question. I was looking for 3 basic qualities in a university: a strong Slavic department with a good Russian program, a strong physics department, and the furthest I could get from Seattle.
Oh, okay.
And one thing I found is that distance was not a problem. You could find schools far away. What was difficult to find was world-class Russian and physics in the same institution, purely because most universities have a limited budget and they have to decide where to spend their money. And I applied at the American University in Georgetown, as well as the University of Washington. American University and Georgetown were my first picks. My parents were much more realistic than I, and they said, you have to apply at the University of Washington because if for no other reason, you could afford it. So I visited the American University and Georgetown, didn't like Georgetown, loved the American University. I had my heart set on them. I came home, I looked at the resources I had to pay for my education and realized that even with the scholarships I'd been awarded by the American University, I simply couldn't afford it. So the bottom line became a budget. And at first I was really upset. I thought, here I've spent all this hard work in high school, I've earned as much money as I can, and now I can't go where I really want to go. And after about a year here at the University of Washington, I realized that I hadn't noticed how much this university has to offer. And it really was the best decision. And it was kind of forced on me externally, and it took me a while to appreciate it. But UW has incredible opportunities in every department and in every field. And since it is a large university and a research institution, there's a lot of room to do what you want, to design your own projects. And with so many departments to draw from, this really was the best school.
So there was a silver lining in that,
That's
in that
right.
cloud.
That's right.
That's great. Well, let me ask you a question about, just a kind of a general question about being an undergraduate at a large research institution.
Yeah.
I would think for some people that might be an intimidating prospect.
Oh, it is.
And you've just mentioned some of the advantages of being in this type of environment. What does the university do to, say, personalize this experience for an undergraduate? Or another way of putting it, what can a student do to make this experience more meaningful? Do you have any suggestions?
My first suggestion is don't be afraid of the professors. I'm still
Good
afraid
advice.
of some of them, but you have to approach your professors. You have to speak with them. You have to admit your own humanity and your own failings and go into them and say, I really screwed up on that test. What do I do now? How do I proceed? How do I go forward?
So they are approachable.
They are approachable.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, some of them do everything they can to be approachable. The first quarter I was here, oh golly, I took honors physics because I wanted to be a physics major. Might as well do the hardest class I could, right? Oh man, the first test came back and I think I had like a 34 out of 100 and the mean was somewhere in the 90s. And I thought, oh no, here it is. I'm gonna have to change my major. And I opened up the test booklet and there's a little note written on the inside from Professor Rare saying, Valerie, please come see me in my office to talk about this test. And I thought, he's gonna tell me I have to drop. So I went in and I felt so terrible about myself. I was like, what am I gonna do? What is he gonna say? And he sat down, he said, you know, you didn't do so well on that test, did you? And I thought, oh, that's an understatement, but at least he's being nice. And then he said, why are you taking this class? And I responded, well, I want to major in physics. And he looked me right in the eyes and he said, then you need to pass this class, don't you? And all of a sudden I thought, he's not telling me to drop. He's asking me to succeed. And I had heard all sorts of horror stories that professors just want you to drop. And here was one telling me, you need to do your best. And he did everything he could to support me and encourage me throughout the entire year that I took his honors physics course. And I'm still amazed. I really am. But the basic truth is professors want to teach students who want to succeed. And anybody would want to.
Right.
Yeah. And they really do reach out. There are weed out courses all over this university. Most of them are 100 level in math and science. But if you meet the professors, they'll take you by the hand and they'll lead you and they'll push you. And there just isn't any better way.
Now, we've talked a little bit about your physics and your science research. Could you describe a little bit more about your particular research, and also maybe before that, some of the opportunities that the university provides for undergraduates to participate in research, which seems to be kind of an unusual thing.
It is, but actually it's a growing field right now, undergraduate research is. One thing that I was amazed to see in Washington, D.C. at this poster session was just the incredible variety of undergraduate research that is going on in this nation. And professors who take on undergraduates often really enjoy having someone who doesn't need a PhD thesis project. They can do something smaller, they can work on a small piece. They're not going to complain if they're asked to do a little bit of the grunge work.
Yeah.
And I overheard one professor say once that one of the best things about undergraduate researchers is they don't believe things can't be done. So graduate students have enough education that
they're more skeptical.
They're more skeptical, that's right.
Yeah.
And they are thinking in terms of a project, which they need to do because you have to get through graduate school and finish your degree and begin, quote unquote, the rest of your life. But as an undergraduate, you have a real luxury. And you learn things you cannot learn in the classroom. And that also really strengthens a graduate school application. It strengthens a job application. I've had interviews with Boeing and TRW and a couple of other large corporations, and they didn't care about the courses I'd taken. They'd start out saying, oh, so you'll have a degree in physics and one in Russian. And then they look over the resume and they say, so tell me about your research. And here at UW, you just go and knock on a professor's door. And if you catch him or her at the wrong time of day, maybe you should have sent an email first. But most professors, if they have time, will take you on.
Now, you just used the phrase, the rest of your life. I know you don't have
in quotation marks.
I know it's not programmed down to the last detail. We do know you're going to be leaving for Russia soon. What about when you come back?
When I come back, I'll have about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, to pack up and move to New Haven, Connecticut for graduate school in geophysics at Yale. And I can honestly say that my research experience made the difference in my application, as well as letters of recommendation. That's another reason to get to know your professors. if you don't, who's going to write those letters of recommendation? And you can't ask your parents.
Yeah.
That doesn't
That's a
work.
good point. That's a good point, yeah.
And you need at least 3 good references, strong references, by the time you leave the university. And undergraduate research is a wonderful way to do it.
And your research that you are going to pursue in graduate school is based on research you did here?
Yes and no. It's more that the research I did here is kind of a springboard to the next step. I started working with Dr. Robert Odom at the Applied Physics Lab in seismology. And in part, his enthusiasm for the field of seismology and for geophysics is just really infectious. It's hard to not be excited about things he talks about. On the other hand, I really got sucked in. I really did. I started falling in love with the physics that the Earth has in it. And the problems they work on in geophysics are very, very mathematical, very physics intensive. And you're kind of playing with the dirt that the Earth is made of, and there's something really exciting about that. So after 2 years in seismology, I decided I wanted to continue, and I also want to kind of branch out and learn some more about volcanism, do some research in that area as well. And Yale has this wonderful project starting up where they're investigating the Kamchatka Peninsula in the Russian Far East.
So a nice linkage for you.
It's a great link. It really is.
That's great.
So I'll be getting on board that soon.
Well, Valerie, this is all very, very impressive. And I know that you're trying to finish up your work here at the end of the year. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today, and congratulations on all of your achievements.
Thank you.
And the best of luck with the road ahead.
Thank you very much.
We are back live here at Commencement 1997. After listening to that interview, I guess you could say that youth is not wasted on the young, not at least in this instance.
I couldn't agree more. You know, it takes a lot of very dedicated and bright people to make a university like this one work. In the corporate world, the chief executive officer calls the shots, most of them at least, and often, and providing that the right shots are called, makes a lot of money for calling them.
And getting them right. Get them wrong, and I believe the term is sayonara. The CEO counterpart in academia is the provost. In a moment, you'll meet ours. He is Lee Huntsman, a research scientist with a background in bioengineering.
One of the greatest challenges that all large organizations, institutions like the University of Washington face is how, given such a large size, they can maintain and foster an atmosphere that promotes learning and discovery. Huntsman has given this matter a lot of thought. He sees this university sharing a set of common core values, as well as a vision and a sense of excitement. And that motivated him to take on this demanding job. I recently had a chance to talk with him about his vision for the university, his observations, and this is a portion of our recent interview. Now, you've been here since 1968. You moved through the professorial ranks in the Center for Bioengineering. You eventually became the director of that unit and an associate dean in the School of Medicine. What are the most distinctive aspects of moving from the academic trenches to being a provost?
Well, the first distinguishing aspect is the expansion of scope and complexity. The institution is enormous, and there's this amazing variety of things going on. But the secondary realization is that underneath that complexity, that enormous scope, is a common set of values. And both of those were a little bit of a revelation to me, to have the perspective from the provost's office to see how that works.
Underlying all that diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really quite remarkable to see how different things appear on the surface, and yet how much commonality there is in that core mission around learning, discovery, really helping students prosper and move forward. And the core agendas of the university are very consistent across this diversity.
Now, I had the opportunity to speak with an undergraduate student as part of this commencement broadcast, and a very impressive undergraduate student who just won a $5,000 honors travel fellowship and was one of 40 undergraduates who was invited back to Washington, D.C. to meet with Congress and discuss her research her undergraduate research. And she just extolled her experiences here as an undergraduate and her ability to take part in that kind of an endeavor. But the research part of this university is one that some people seem to have a hard time understanding. As provost, how would you explain that to the community outside this campus?
Well, you know, it's really interesting. We presume that the public doesn't have much of an understanding of research. We presume that when the broad lay public thinks about the University of Washington, they think first about our sports teams and second about what goes on in the undergraduate classroom and little beyond that. But we've recently done a really interesting study of public perceptions of the University of Washington. And while it's true they're very aware of our sports teams and very, very interested in undergraduate education, they also have a much higher understanding of and a regard for our research function than we realized. Now, that doesn't mean they understand all of its breadth or what we would consider as its impact, but they're in a much more positive view of it than we had realized. So starting from that, if I was to go out and try to explain research, I would try to link it to the common human perception about what exploration and discovery are all about. I mean, we are all in our inner beings interested in exploration and discovery, and as a society, we Americans are acculturated that way from way back, whether it be, you know, going to the moon or whatever it might be. And research is about exploration and discovery in the world of ideas, new knowledge. I would also try to link it to people's personal interests. We find that the area of the university research that people most immediately identify with personally is medical research, because that's a common concern.
It affects all of us, right.
And we all share this perception that medical research has advanced medicine greatly to our common benefit and our personal individual benefit, and the benefit of our families. But there are other areas of research too, and it all depends on where the audience or the individual is coming from. In many areas of our technical and scientific research, they couple directly to worlds of business and education and other areas that are dynamic and that people in the public care about and are aware of. Even in less obvious areas, we're doing research, for example, in areas of how governments can function better. You know, public affairs research.
Maybe
well,
people don't often think of
you don't think of that,
right?
But the truth is, good ideas, worthy experiments, if you will, are happening in that arena, and government is a concern to all of us. Another area that seems superficially esoteric that comes to mind, for example, is the area of philosophy. Well, research in philosophy doesn't quite connect. But then you say, well, the issues are issues of ethics. Modern dilemmas in ethics brought upon us by the modern society, the technical society. What are the ethical implications of the genetics revolution in medicine? These are very deep, significant issues that require a lot of research and academic thinking, but also in the context of public discussion. So when you try to talk about research, I think you try to link it to what people understand, where they're coming from. But it's really encouraging to me to realize that the public at large understands that the University of Washington, when we say it is a research university, that means it does discovery as well as teaching, and that those two actually are intertwined. And the experience of the student that you mentioned is a perfect example. One of the things we can do in a research university is to offer what I call the experiential dimension of learning. What goes on in the classroom is very, very important, but that's not the limit. In many ways, the classroom prepares you for the experiential component. And by being a big, strong research university, we have a wealth of opportunity that we can offer to our students, undergraduates as well as graduates. And we're doing a pretty good job of that, and we aspire to do a lot more. About a quarter of our graduating seniors now report that they've had a significant research experience as an undergraduate, for example.
Right. That's a lot more than I would have
Yeah,
expected.
that's more than most of us would have expected.
Yeah.
But one of my passions is to capitalize on our capacity to offer students those experiential dimensions and to extend it more broadly to more and more students.
Yeah. Now, what you've just said probably will kind of apply to my next question as well. But in his first year here, President McCormick spent a lot of time traveling around the state, listening to people, getting a sense of how the UW is perceived and a sense of what his challenges might be. Assume for a minute that you had an opportunity to travel around the state and discuss this flagship institution with the average citizen taxpayer. How would you justify the value of their investment?
Well, you know, the University of Washington is really a remarkable institution. There are in this country, a lot of very good state level regional universities. For about the same cost, what the state of Washington has in the University of Washington is a premier world-class institution. So investment, I think, really is the right word. Through a combination of circumstance, leadership, and just remarkable hard work over decades, what the people of the University of Washington have done is to build a very, very strong national level university at a bargain price for the state of Washington. And that brings a lot of benefits with it. The research enterprise is much bigger than similar institutions. And the benefits of that, both to our students and to our local economy, are enormous. You know, we thought a bit in anticipation of the legislative session this year. How do we describe the state's investment in the University of Washington? How do we make a case? And we asked the simple question of, if you have a state university, what might you like it to be really good at? And so you come up with the obvious things. We'd like to have it be good at undergraduate education. We'd like to have it be good at graduate education. While we're at it, we'd like to have it be really good at getting those federal grant dollars that bring so much strength into the institution and into the region. We'd like to have it be very constructively involved with industry and have industry support for research and education. We'd like to have it be good at transferring technology out into the economy. We'd like to have it be good at private fundraising, philanthropy. So we came up with those 6 things. And we simply made a list, a national list of the public universities and how they rank in each of those 6 categories. The only university that's in the top 10 in all 6 categories is the University of Washington.
Wow.
Now, that's one way that I would portray to the citizens of the state the return on their investment in this institution.
Do you think we need to do a better job of getting that word out?
Yeah, we do. And we are doing some things. We've gotten better over recent years. But we can't do it just on an episodic kind of basis.
Right.
We have to have an ongoing effort.
Yeah. So that's probably one of the key challenges that you see on the horizon. Are there others? Or what are the challenges that you would identify looming ahead?
We're currently engaged in what we call a strategic thinking process with our regents and our campus leaders. And this is an ongoing process. And we characterize ourselves as being confronted by an array or a matrix of forces and a matrix of forces which is, we think, more dramatic and more extensive than has historically been the case. As I said earlier on, the University of Washington is an organic institution. It has actually changed remarkably over the past decades, and often in response to forces of change and forces of opportunity. But we perceive ourselves today to be subjected to a wider array of really powerful forces, not all pushing us in the same direction. One of the really big ones is the demographic changes coming upon our society and our state. Not only a rapid escalation of the traditional college-age students, but also a pretty dramatic increase in interest in education later in life by adults.
Continuous
And
learning.
embedded in the demographic change is a change in the ethnic mix of our society. There's a big diversity shift coming at us. Another big force has to do with simply the public expectations of the University of Washington. When you ask people what do they think about higher education, they value it a lot, and they fully expect that it will be there for them and for their children and for their grandchildren. In the face of demographic pressures, we also have these pressures of expectations that we have to respond to. We see information technology as a dramatic force, changing not only how we operate today, but how we're likely to operate in the years ahead. In how we teach on campus, how we teach at distance, how we best use faculty to aid student learning. There are many, many implications. And those are just three of a whole matrix of forces that add up to a series of challenges for the institution. We are being asked simultaneously to do more, to accommodate more students, to reach out, to place-bound students, to partner with community colleges, to do a variety of what I call the more kind of challenges. At the same time, we have to be conscious of how to do better, how to better prepare our students for this dynamic 21st century, for the changing job requirements, all those expectations. We have to figure out how to continue to position the University of Washington in this really very competitive marketplace. What people don't realize is that higher education and research are competitive marketplaces. We compete nationally for the very best faculty, and we compete for research grants. It's a very rigorous kind of existence, and we have to keep the institution agile, adaptable, and ready for that sort of future.
No small tasks here.
No small tasks. No small tasks.
Well, one final question. It's obviously, or probably, too soon to be talking about your legacy here, but if you were to say right now, what are the kinds of things that you might want to help change about the university for its future?
I'd like to be part of the effort that helps the University of Washington become even more effective, helps it become agile and adaptive in this uncertain future. As we look out, we're trying to look out a decade or more and say, what are teaching and learning going to be like? What is the research mission going to be like? How do we prepare the institution for that? We find far more questions and uncertainties than things that we can count on. So the issue in many ways is how to help the institution be adaptable, and yet do so with its core values intact. I think the core values of the institution are fundamentally right, and we need to enhance those, not protect them in some defensive way, but to emphasize them and to move into the future with a clear sense of what it is we bring to society and how to enhance that role.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Huntsman, for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today, and the best of luck in the years ahead.
Thank you very much.
We are back live in Heck Edmondson Pavilion as coverage of the 122nd Commencement at the University of Washington continues. Lee Huntsman, a fascinating man. I guess all of us will be watching with a great deal of interest the course which he steers over the next few years.
I know I will as well. And the job is really daunting. A provost is responsible for budgets, strategic planning. He or she, in our case he, works with the deans of the various schools and colleges to plot the academic course of this institution. In recent years, almost 3 of them, we've had somewhat of a provost drought. That came to an end in March when Dr. Huntsman, who was the acting provost, was officially and permanently appointed to this position.
He's no stranger here. Huntsman made his mark in the late 1960s with what the engineering community refers to as elegant research. His focused on the mechanics of the heart and heart-muscle cardiovascular system assessment and new techniques for measuring cardiac function. He has been a professor and director of the Center for Bioengineering, which is a unit of the College of Engineering and the School of Medicine. It's quite a combination.
We're watching the tail end of the bachelor's degree candidates file up to receive their degrees. And now I guess they go from scholarly pursuits to the more mundane stuff with any kind of luck, the real workaday world. And all of us who are part of this community, though, take heart in knowing that the diploma that these students receive today gives them a valuable ticket to that world. And it's something that Meg Greenfield alluded to in her commencement address today as well, how valuable this UW education is.
There are some recent figures from the graduating class of 1995 that enter into this picture. 1 year after graduation, 95% of those bachelor degree recipients were either working or back in school, most doing graduate work. And of those employed, and I think this is a telling figure, 85% held jobs in the state of Washington.
And it's also really encouraging to know that many business leaders in this state, businesses are increasingly recruiting UW students. The number of employers interviewing on campus this year went up by about 11%, a significant jump. Most of those represent small and medium-sized companies, and most of the opportunities, and I don't think this comes as any great surprise, are in the software technology industries, but also business-related jobs, things like management training, sales, management consulting positions, things like that.
Also, it won't be any surprise to know that or learn perhaps, that the internet is becoming the job hunting tool of choice, or at least another tool for a lot of these graduates. Further evidence that I suppose we should all develop a certain amount of computer literacy. The feedback that we get back from both new and recent graduates shows that the World Wide Web is connecting a lot of people with good jobs. It's a common phenomenon that is certain to become even more common.
Oh, I'm sure it will. And, after listening to the tape with Valerie Payton, any big university like the UW has got to seem imposing to someone who enters as a freshman. It is so encouraging to see people like Valerie use this environment for all it's worth. But when you get to know the people who teach here, like the distinguished teachers we heard from earlier, you realize that they are often at least world-class scholars and really good human beings, and that may well be the reason they're here in the first place.
The milk of human kindness by the quart in every vein?
Something like that.
Just about every major university wants to ease the transition from high school to college, and so is re-examining this so-called freshman experience that you referred to. We've done that, trying to come up with ways to take the big out of a big school, and the freshmen who take part like it. One way is called the Freshman Interest Group, FIG for short. We started that about 10 years ago. It's become so successful that some other universities have used it as a model to help their freshmen acclimate to this heady atmosphere of academe.
Yeah, and another way is the freshman seminar program. When you heard graduating senior Valerie Payton talk about her opportunities to engage in research as an undergraduate. And The freshman seminar program gives that first-year student an early entree into the many cutting-edge areas of research, an opportunity to interact with senior faculty, experts in their fields, and small groups of 10 to 15 students. It's really a great opportunity for any freshman to be able to jump in like that.
And that small group experience that you referred to has got to be one of the great parts of that scholarship. Before we leave you, a reminder, you can get a copy of the printed program for this year's ceremonies by contacting the Office of Public Exercises, Box 355-833, University of Washington, Seattle 98195 is the zip.
Or if you'd like a videotape of our broadcast, you can purchase that at the University Bookstore. The cost is $24.95. In order to get that tape or to get more information about it, you can call toll-free at 1-800-335-READ. So we'll just sit back and let the remainder of this bachelor's part of the program finish up, and we thank you for joining us here today.
The passing out ceremony. UWTV is pleased to bring you this 122nd commencement exercise from Heck Edmondson Pavilion on the University of Washington campus.
After the singing of the alma mater, the audience and members of the graduating class are requested to remain standing in their places until the recessional of the faculty is concluded. The graduating class and guests will then resume their seats, and under the direction of the commencement marshals, the graduates will march outside to meet their parents and friends. We urge that the order of the recessional be maintained until you leave the pavilion. The audience will now please rise for the singing of the alma mater. The words are printed on the inside of the back cover of the commencement program.
my sons and daughters sing glad acclaim through years of youth and loyalty, and still in age we sing thy fame. In honor thy towers stand, thy battlements shine in dawning light, and glow again in sunset rays. All hail, O Washington!
The 122nd Commencement exercises of the University of Washington are now closed.
The graduating class of 1997, faculty and dignitaries are about to take their leave from Heck Edmondson Pavilion, and we are about to join them as we conclude this year's broadcast coverage of Commencement 1997. I'm Pam Stewart.
And I'm Jim Stutzman. Final congratulations to these latest University of Washington graduates. And thank you to you, the viewers of this telecast, for joining us here today. Commencement 1997 on UWTV has been presented as a public service by the University of Washington.
Graduates and guests, please be seated and await your turn to exit. Thank you.